2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
And welcome to a beautiful spring day in Pittsburgh, PA on April 9th, 2013. I'm Lynn Cullen. My sister is unable to join us today, so it's just you and me for whatever free-ranging conversation you've got in mind. I'm going to start, as I sometimes do, on the bus, a vehicle of conveyance that I highly recommend for not just getting from point A to point B or point A to near point B, which then requires you to engage in something that is, I think, good for you, but that we don't do enough of, and that is walking. The population of any one bus is obviously different on any day, although you start to notice people and see people. Today, I found myself on a pretty crowded bus, but managed to wrangle a seat. One of those times when you make the calculation, okay, do I embarrass myself by trying to plant my behind in this space? I know it goes, but the person next to it is sort of flopping over a little bit into it. And so in order to, public transportation requires you at times to literally be close to strangers in a very physical way. Unlike an airplane seat that at least has a what do you call that? An arm. In a bus, you actually end up, legs, thighs touching, and arms touching, and I suppose for some people that's a deal breaker. For others, it might be the only human contact they literally have. And for me, I don't care one way or the other. Sometimes it amuses me. And sometimes I do wonder when pressed up against, let's say, a young male, if they're thinking, God, I wish this old lady would get the heck out of here. Blech. You wonder. You start seeing thought bubbles over people's heads. Well, so I squeeze myself onto a seat, and right after me, another older woman sits down next to me, and our hips join, And I turn and I recognize her as somebody who used to frequent the same park I did walking her dog when I had my dog, Lucy. And so I said, oh, well, hello. And we began to talk. In the course of our freewheeling conversation, we began to talk about education. I mentioned something about what we had talked about on the program yesterday in regard to the absurdity and even the destructiveness of these mandated tests for No Child Left Behind. And it turns out that the woman I was sitting next to has been a teacher for years and years at the Greater Pittsburgh Literacy Council. And then she tells me that they have just changed the rules for the GED, another test, a very important test in people's lives. This is the equivalency diploma for people who never graduated from high school, and it is what a lot of the people who come to the Literacy Council are seeking. But first they have to get their reading down, and they've got to get tutoring in other subjects. So she tells me that the testing service that is in charge of the GED, for one thing, for the first time this year, it will all be on computer. And I thought, well, that's a positive, isn't it? Well, of course, no, it's not. Because a lot of the people taking the GED, the population that takes it, have not had much access, if any, to computers. Younger people do, but not these older people that decide to finally get their equivalent diploma. And she said, so it adds another layer of something where they've got to become comfortable with how you work a computer. They have to know how to use the mouse to drag something somewhere, to be able to do the word processing aspect. She said some have never dealt with a keyboard, and they've got to be able to type in maybe as much as 2 paragraphs in some situations. She said, so the added level of anxiety and then just education required by this step to paperless GED presents a lot of people some real problems. But then she got to the big problem. She said, with these computers now coming in, and instead of the paper, they've upped the price. And I don't know why it never occurred to me that if you want a GED, of course, there'd be a price. And there is. For somebody who wants to take the GED, they have to now pay $120. Now, that seems really steep to me when you think of the population that we're probably talking about. We're talking about people that, by virtue of their illiteracy and their perhaps, lack of education, are not generally making much money. $120 is a hunk of change. And here's what makes it even more extraordinary. $120 payable only by credit card. Okay, so this begins again to sound so much like voter ID stuff. You have a population that is without some of the resources that the rest of us take for granted. And the people that are trying to get their GEDs are trying to crawl out of this lack of opportunity, crawl into more fertile territory. And obviously, the people that oversee this process, which is now mostly, I think, a private company, testing service, they just keep putting more and more barriers. A lot of these people don't have credit cards. They don't have computers. I'm not saying they shouldn't. Knowing how to use a computer is obviously a basic skill now. So that part doesn't be the price, and then the only a credit card. It's just, so while we're talking, this young woman who's standing in front of us, holding on to a bar, turns and says, "Excuse me, I couldn't help but hear. What are you?" So she engages us. And then the woman sitting on my other side engages us. And lo and behold, business cards are transferred. The young woman standing up is involved in some kind of an organization. She said, "I've got to get this information out. And I'll e-blast it, and I can talk to somebody else." She said, "But I don't think people know this." So this young woman was fully aware that this information is going to scuttle the dreams of a lot of people who won't be prepared to pay the price, won't be prepared to, they won't have a credit card. There's ways around. Well, you can get a temporary credit card, or you can get a this or that. But I just somehow sitting on the bus and finding myself before I landed here on Smithfield, 4 women, 2 black, 2 white, 2 young, 2 old, all realizing that there was information here that needed to be out there, that wasn't out there, and all decided that we were willing to get it out. So the one woman with her e-blast is going straight in and doing that now. The woman sitting next to me hands me she says, "I have a radio show," the woman next to me says. I said, "You do?" "So do I." She says, "Well, it's an internet radio show." I said, "Yeah, me too. What's yours?" And it's radio4u.us for the numeral and U, the letter. Radio 4U. And this is, it's free online radio 24/7. They play R&B, oldies, Sunday gospel, and jazz. Stop and think about that. These are the kinds of things that, right, the AM and FM radio pretty much don't do anymore. And with the demise of Whammo, this audience is not being served. And here's this woman sitting next to me. I said, "Well, where do you do this?" She said, "Out of my house." And, she's looking for advertising. She gave me a little thing. And she says, "And would you like it?" It also says, "Would you like to know what's happening in your community?" So this show is going to provide a service to, again, this underserved population that the powers that be essentially give the finger to on a regular basis. And here's where the internet, which I often excoriate, is a wondrous thing. Anyway, ride the bus. It's interesting. It truly is. And if you know anyone who would benefit from this information about the GED, pass it on, please. Caller, go ahead.
Good morning.
Hi.
You were talking about the school system a little bit there.
Yeah.
I always thought when you were in high school, now it's probably too late to do something like this, but all these courses they have now that kids get out and pay $11,000 to go to a school for a year and a half, those should have been taught in the 11th grade in high school. When they came out of school, they would be able to be a nursing assistant, a medical assistant, any type of trade. Now the people who are academic or, they're math and science and want to be college prep, that's fine, keep it the way it is, but you shouldn't have to go out of school and not prepare for life you don't know how to do anything.
That's
So
right.
you come out of high school and you have a trade or some type of skill and go right into the workforce. No, they want you to get out of high school and then go pay them $11,000 to pick up some skill. To me, it's crazy. Now, I know it's all about money because it always is, but that's just my personal opinion on the whole thing.
Well, as often I do, agree with you wholeheartedly. Thank you. Makes no sense at all. Yeah, we let these kids out of with their diplomas, and they're pretty much good for nothing except maybe going on to college or in the cases on to, again, these vocational schools that teach things that could be taught. He's absolutely right. In the 11th and 12th grades for people who simply want to go into, a lot of the stuff that's being taught here, we've got one of these private things here, and you see the students, they have color-coded uniforms they wear. They wear scrubs in color code, so those that are going to become massage therapists are dressed in one color. Those who are taking the, what are some of the other things they do there? Dental hygienist or the respiratory therapist, whatever. But these so-called, these private schools that teach those trades now are gouge these kids, gouge them. And right, it could be done in the public school system where you would they train for service jobs, essentially, low-level skilled service jobs. Oh. Anyway, Chris writes, just curious to see if you watched Mad Men the other night. I know in the past you sometimes watched. I find the show fascinating. It's so well done. They're now up to the end of 67, beginning of 1968. Should be a very interesting season, considering everything that happened in 1968. Yeah, well, Chris, I did watch. I have to tell you, for some reason, have always had trouble getting engaged in Mad Men. I know it's well written. I know it's well acted. I know all of that, and I've sort of pretty much followed it. But I, for some reason, can't quite get... I think I told you that I'm on this crazed... why can't I think of nouns today? Nouns are my crazed effort to see all of The Wire, which is a show that's no longer there, and generally judged to be one, if not the best television show ever made. And because I've been so immersed in The Wire, when I watched Mad Men last Sunday night, I couldn't help but compare the two, and I just much prefer the company of the people in The Wire to the company of the people in Mad Men. Because, one of the things about a TV show or a serial like this is you do spend time with certain characters, and I don't particularly like the characters on Mad Men. I'm trying to think of any I do. In Sunday's show, I liked, and I'm blanking on her name, the actress January Jones, the ex-wife of Betty. I liked her courage and stick-to-itiveness in heading down to St. Mark's Place in Manhattan to this den of drug-taking hippies looking for, is it her stepdaughter?
I don't know.
I don't know who it is either. I wasn't sure the violinist player. I don't know. But I appreciated that, and then back to her. And I agree that but I was so much alive in that period myself. and in fact, in 1968, worked at one of the largest advertising agencies in the country at the time, Foot, Cone, and Belding. I worked in their Chicago offices. And it was one step up from a clerical job, I assure you. It was nothing much. It was me buying time after I dropped out of college and was heading off to New York to become Sarah Bernhardt. And so I saw it up close and personal. And it was something. It was. And the drugs were there, just as they show. They were smoking pot in the offices on the Sunday show. Absolutely. It was much more than pot, though. There was acid around, all that stuff that I know they've been on Mad Men because there were acid trips that we saw at the end of last season. All that was there. What's wrong?
I haven't seen it.
Oh. Well, I'm sorry, Jess. At any rate, I don't like these people. They're not the people I was hanging with in the 60s. And they seem so out of it. They seem, their suits. I was not. I was, and I wasn't like these dirty hippies that she bumped into. I was where a lot of young people were in those days, and I sure as heck didn't identify with the suits, which is what the Mad Men are, because they're just a little bit older, right? I don't know. I don't know. I know it's well done, but frankly, I don't care as much about them. Again, the subjects in The Wire, which is down and dirty, gritty Baltimore in the 90s or early 2000s. I find that more compelling. It's more real to me. And frankly, I like the characters better. I even like some of the murderous characters better. I like them as people better than I like the suits in Mad Men. I don't like them. And maybe it's because they're just too close to people I do know or did know at that time. And we weren't on the same, I just wasn't on the same wavelength with them then. And I'm not on the same wavelength with them now. But this is the subjectivity of any kind of entertainment fair. You come to it with your own life experience and react to the reality that it provides and offers up. And in this case, this is not the way I remember 68 at all. I mean, 68 was the most extraordinary year in my life in terms of just what was happening around me and in the environment. And the only thing I see in Mad Men that is reminiscent of where I was in the 60s is the total self-involvement of everybody. I mean, and the sort of sense of everybody seems lost, and everybody seems selfish. They just seem totally stuck in their own heads. And I think that was the case then. Everybody struggling to try to come to terms with the extraordinary changes that were happening. I don't know. I don't like them. I don't like them. I'm sorry to disappoint you, Chris. I know you, and I never seem to react to these things like other people do. I don't know. Something's wrong with me when it comes to TV. Okay, I'm sorry, I got another, looks like very good email, but it's too complicated for me to take in while I'm babbling. Well, Senator Toomey, our very own Senator Toomey, is now being looked at as the potential godsend of getting some background check legislation through this dysfunctional body that we refer to as the U.S. Congress. It'd be incredible if he could, and it shows that Toomey, who is about as rabid a financial conservative as there is perhaps, in terms of some of the social issues, a little more willing to push a boundary or two. Although, let's not give him, I ain't giving him any Profile and Courage Award for being a Republican who might come out for background checks, considering that he is living in a state where 94% of the people, that's Pennsylvania, support requiring background checks for all gun sales. It's according to the most recent poll. Think of that, because Pennsylvania is, when it comes to gun stuff, this is an NRA state. And you have it's a joke, it's like unanimous, 94% of Pennsylvanians supporting this. So for Toomey to get out ahead in front of that, again, as I say, is hardly an act of political courage. And if it is, because it will incur the wrath of the NRA, which will then target him next time he's up for re-election, which is in many years, has to be at least 4 years, and cost him his seat. All that would show us is how unbelievably corrupted our government is. If 90+% of Americans want something, and the National Rifle Association can, with their money and their muscle, terrorize our representatives from doing what we want. That's a system in total dysfunction. All right. Speaking of pot, I want to get back to that and tell you that now pot is becoming the darling of the capitalist crowd. Oh, this is a big shockaroo. Okay, if you want to know what'll be driving legalization of marijuana now, it's going to be Wall Street. I'll tell you all about that when we come back.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
Go to bergbargains.com for great deals on gift cards from your favorite local restaurants, bars, museums, and shows. This week only, get discounts up to 30% for Tamari. bergbargains.com, Pittsburgh's best bargains. bergbargains.com.
It's warming up outside, so get to Little's for all your spring needs. Little's has everything for men, women, and children to stay in style for this upcoming hot summer. Lots of great colors from Dansko, New Balance, Steve Madden, and much, much more. Don't forget to come visit this season's colorful handbag selection as well. Little Shoes, Pittsburgh's largest family shoe store, 5850 Forbes Avenue in Squirrel Hill.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
So quickly you came back. David writes, I agree with you about Mad Men. It's well written, acted, and produced, but there's not a sympathetic character anywhere. They're all despicable. Betty's gotten fat. I like her for that. That's normal. Betty's gotten fat. She's also the worst actress. Yeah, she's not. That's not a good actress. I agree with you. January Jones is not a great actress. I'd like to see them emphasize the storyline of Don Draper not being who he says he is more. That's a really neat subplot. I agree with that. Well, I think they sort of came back to it with the well, never mind. the lighter. He's a miserable soul, and he's a screwed up cookie. And I guess, well, aren't we all? Colette writes, I personally went to a suburban high school that had a VOTEC opportunity for kids. Several local high schools sent kids to Parkway West Technical School. Yeah, yours did?
My high school did.
What high school was that? Montour. So Jess's high school did. They sent kids to Parkway West Technical School for a half day, 5 days a week.
You chose to do it, though.
You would choose to do it. That's what you wanted to do. And Colette's remembering there was auto tech and hairstyling and accounting. That program still exists in 14 public/private high schools. Well, that's good to know. And Parkway West is still there. And she provided a website, parkwaywest.org. I mean, it's so true. I am just blown away. And I wonder about my own son. I mean, he's a junior in college now. So he'll be coming out in a year with, I hope, with a degree in business and marketing. Now, sounds good. Where the hell's he going to go? There aren't jobs anymore. And the jobs that exist suck. You work your tail off and you don't make a living wage. Ask Jess. You work your tail off. You work 2 jobs. You work 3 jobs. Jess has a college degree. Jess has debt up to her eyeballs from having acquired it. Jess is bright. And we're not providing the jobs that afford people who've done everything they were told to do. You gotta have a college degree. And now I was told the other day that, it's not enough to have a BA in business. He's got to have an MBA. So you got to have more and more and more. There's no assurance whatsoever on the other side. None. Hello, caller.
Hi, Ed.
Hi.
I guess you have my little stickers I sent you.
What?
This is still there?
Yeah, well, you're breaking up a little bit. You're breaking up a lot. I'm sorry. Call back when we can get you when you're in a better place. You don't know what to tell people to do. But when I look at all those, I got stuck down in Oakland yesterday, and there were all those students. They're walking in front of my car and walking here and walking there, these young, earnest people. I was imagining price tags over their heads of all the money that their family and that they are spending to get this must-have education, and the debt that they are accruing in most cases. And then I'm wondering, is this a good investment for all these people? And I'm telling you right now, no. Go ahead, caller.
Hi, Lynn. Does this sound any better?
You bet it does. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I sent you a couple stickers a couple weeks ago.
Oh, yeah? Did you get my thank you note?
But here's why I was calling. I can't hear you too well, but there seems to be. I'm a sheet metal worker, and there seems to be a kind of a I don't know. People kind of look, I don't know, funny at me because it's not. I don't have a college education. I think I'm breaking up again, but
you're okay.
I think in general, people don't. I recommended to a friend of mine. Her kid was going to go be an engineer. He's not going to be an engineer. I said, go, get him in the trades. Oh, no, that's no good. I have health care, and I still have a pension kind of left, and it's the best you can do. But work's getting slim. I lost you. So,
no, no, you didn't, and it's it's a good point. A good point you're making. An incredible point you're making, and people just need. I don't know. People have been sold on this idea that you have to go to college, but for many people, it is a totally wrong move to make. And
I agree, and it was the wrong. Going into the trades was the right thing for me.
Yep.
I was just stumble bumming around, and the opportunity opened itself, so I took it. But here's something that my wife does that I know other people don't do. Like I got 4 little kids, and they're like close together. If they're digging up the street, when they were all home before they went to school, if they were digging up the street, she'd take them down there and say, "Look, that guy's doing that. That guy's running the backhoe," and they'd ask these guys questions. My kids are friends with the garbage men. I mean, we talk about that's a good job. So.
Well, good for you, and your kids are lucky to have you as a parent who doesn't downgrade any employment. And in fact, the kind of employment that gets downgraded is often the answer for so many people. It's steady work, it's good work, and it's work with benefits. It just doesn't come with a la-di-da status that everybody seems to be reaching for.
Right, and then all work has value,
Yep.
I mean, it has value, and that's all there is to it. And shame on people for downgrading anybody for working,
I'm with you. Thank you for a great call.
Okay, so long.
Bye. I swear I sent you a thank you note for that. Woof. With poop. He sent me a sticker that said poop, but there was a reason for it, and poop stands for something. Believe me. There were supporters of his a band he had or something. It was cute as can be. Well, we can talk like this till we're blue in the face. I don't know. If my son had had an inclination for like carpentry, or if he'd shown an interest in that kind of stuff, I absolutely would have pushed him in that direction. To have a skill that can't be outsourced, to have a skill in which you could maybe even have your own business, I can't think of anything better in this crazy day and age, when all the people who followed the rules and went into debt and got their degrees will be bouncing from one god-awful job to another for the rest of their lives. Hello?
Yeah, hello.
Oh, Clarence, I am so sorry that I dissed your favorite show.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about Mad Men. I'm talking about work.
That's okay. But, I mean, so I can't quite get into it. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, but I can see why people hate, can't take the characters of Mad Men. But that's, that kind of Don Draper was what I wanted to be when I was a kid. So it's like living vicariously through him. I mean,
okay.
The babes, the job, everything about it is just me.
Yeah, but you see how miserable he is.
Yeah, but so what? He's got like a really nice house, cool cars, babes all over the place.
He's unhappy and contemplating suicide.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay, so on to jobs.
But the thing is, what I was talking about, I have a cousin who runs a backhoe, and he never graduated high school. Then he always, and I use it to talk to kids too. Well, first of all, the other guy, the kid that's going to school for engineer, that's one of the jobs that you should go to school for. That we're lacking in engineers in this country. That's one of them. Business, on the other hand, I don't know. But anyway, he never graduated high school. He started out just carrying bricks. That's what he did. He carried bricks, but he went to work every day, and they trained him how to use the machinery. This is back in the 80s. They trained him how to use the machinery.
Yeah.
Now he works for Columbia Gas. He's that guy who goes through the place, digs up the hole, sits there, and waits for the guys to do what they got to do, and then he fills the hole up. That's what he does.
That would drive me stark raving mad.
Yeah, and I have a nephew who, he wanted to be like his old Uncle Clarence. He wanted to go to art school, be graphic designer, and all that kind of good stuff. But had kids young, so he had to go to work. Then he got a job at a mill. I said, dude, just go to work every day. That's it. I said, if you get up in the morning and cough up a lung, put the lung in your pocket and go to work. They'll send you home. I said, but if you do that, I said, they'll train you to do anything. So they trained him how to be a welder. They trained him. They paid for it. He doesn't have any debt.
That's
They
right.
just want people who work, you know.
Yep.
And then he gets a job, gets laid off, gets another job, gets laid off. He gets a third job, and it's too far away from his family, so he decided to go into the coal mines. This kid makes 4 or 5 times the money I make. You know, but he just goes to work every day. That's the trick. I don't care what job it is, you know. Just go to, you know, it's
Well, you
about
know, he should-
the work ethic. What's that?
He should. I hope he's getting paid a whole bunch for going into a coal mine.
Oh, I told him, I said, Kev, you went way beyond what I would ever do.
No, because
there was no possible way. And and my nephew's smart. He also has his real estate license, owns 4 rental properties. That the coal mine money is enabling him to buy more property, so he doesn't have to be in the coal mine until he's 90. You know what I mean?
It's great.
That's he has long range plans.
Good for him, and no student debt.
Absolutely none.
I love it. Thank you, Clarence.
Okie dokie.
Bye. Bye. Okay, so I was talking about pot. I'm looking at a picture of 3 suits. They look like they could be on Mad Men. And they're bankers. They knew each other at Yale when they got their MBAs. They're in their 40, 38, about that age. And they are in the vanguard of capitalists who are readying themselves to make gazillions off of the legalization of marijuana. Stop and think about it. Right now, the people making gazillions are huge drug dealers, drug cartels. None of it's taxed, and there's unbelievable amounts of money there. In fact, what the people who are thinking, the capitalists are thinking, is, look, we've got a known market here is probably the illegal market in marijuana alone. I'm not talking about any other drug. The illegal market in marijuana is, in the United States alone, somewhere, it says here, north of $18 billion a year. So, once it becomes legalized, it's conceivable that that would tick up some, that some people, once it's legalized, will resume, perhaps, their consumption of marijuana. There's no real way to assess the potential legal market, but it's been assumed that, just working off what medical marijuana market is, it's already $1.5 billion. That's just medical marijuana. You gotta believe that we're talking a huge, huge industry. And so these guys are being, it says they're like Silicon Valley entrepreneurs, the startup pot investors. They're getting in on the ground floor in different ways, and it's a very risky thing right now because it's a federal crime. It doesn't matter if Colorado says it's legal and if Washington State says it's legal, if the feds still say it's illegal. So, because if you don't know exactly what's going to happen, how it's going to break down. Colorado is going about its business. They are still formulating exactly how it will work in Colorado, how it will be regulated. The retailers who sell marijuana, what percentage of it they have to grow themselves as opposed to import. These guys, the bankers, they're looking to essentially be a big fish that will, once things sort of get stabilized, once you have these successful ma and pa organizations, operations, they'll come in and buy them. It's the part of capitalism I absolutely detest. So they always wipe out the smaller, community-based entrepreneurs. And so you end up with just this one, a few big boys who, that's what, so as I read this, the odds are that's what's going to happen. Right now, there is a $200 million, they consider this the most valuable marijuana entrepreneur right now in the country, is a group called Medical Marijuana. It's based in San Diego, and it's worth about $200 million. But you will see these smaller operations, because Colorado's full of them, just being gobbled up. Here's a guy who is chairman of some Seattle-based organization, and he's already working on plans for 24 upscale marijuana shops. As the anchor of what he hopes, here's how he's selling it. Hopes will become a Harley-Davidson-like lifestyle brand. And this guy who's doing this is, by the way, the director of stock exchange floor operations for a securities company. He's a guy who appears on CNBC shows talking about stocks. But he's back there trying to figure out how he's going to become the gazillionaire when marijuana becomes legal. It says it was the activists who got us this far, but we're seeing more capitalists now in the past 2 years. And so, the capitalists sit back and let the grassroots do the hard work, and then they come in and vacuum up money. Yuck. So, I don't know. We'll see. These guys say that they think pot markets will behave like other markets. They'll get more capital intensive, more concentrated, more professional. The little guys will be squeezed out. But in the back, the federal government could cripple it. Now, the president is on record as saying he's got bigger fish to fry than going after people in states that have legalized it. And obviously, to my mind, that's the right way to go. Did I take a second break? No, I didn't think I had. So let's do it.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen Live after this.
Welcome to Move Time Radio, presented by the Arthritis Foundation. And we're smack dab in the middle of our dance-a-thon to fight arthritis pain. Me, I've been grooving for 10 hours straight, baby, but I'm a boogie machine. See, movement is just one of the ways to help fight osteoarthritis pain. Another is weight loss. You get rid of just 1 pound. That's 4 pounds of pressure off each knee. For more information on managing pain, visit fightarthritispain.org. Then meet me on the dance floor. This message brought to you by the Arthritis Foundation and the Ad Council.
This week's Pittsburgh City Paper is available now. Pick up one today for a look at the Jewish Film Festival, plus Mercury Soul, Eric Clapton, and Mike Nesmith. Pittsburgh City Paper, available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania, and on the web at pghcitypaper.com, and on your smartphone at citypapermobile.com.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn at pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
Okie doke. MICKEYMOUSC. R.I.P. Annette Funicello. I'm so old that I very clearly remember the beginning of the Mickey Mouse Club. That was like mid-50s, wasn't it? And Annette was, man, even then, I mean, she sort of freaked everybody out because she was like developed before anybody else was. She had these boobs. And a lot of the other girls didn't have much of anything there. And I don't know. Anyway, Annette Funicello, who was not a good actress, was not much of a singer, if you ask me, but she caught the eye of Mr. Disney and made it on as the last Mouseketeer, the original Mouseketeers. And when she outgrew the Musketeers, Disney, she's the only one who Disney afforded a contract to do some movies for him. And the beach movies that she made, Disney signed off on them but said, "That's fine, but I want you to promise me that you will never wear a revealing bathing suit that shows your navel." That was his thing. If you could not see Annette Funicello's navel. That was... Anyway, so it turns out, I don't know, if you look at like Beach Blanket Bingo and stuff, I think you can see her navel if you want to. I'm not sure she kept that promise, actually. Oh, okay. Speaking of back in the business world again, let's talk about the penny. A lot of small businesses will tell you the pennies drive them nuts. They don't want to deal with them. Some California businesses are refusing to deal with pennies. What they're doing is rounding down. They don't want their customers to think they're making any money off this deal. They so hate pennies that they're rounding down so that they don't have to deal with them. The U.S. Mint doesn't really want to deal with pennies anymore because, it says that it costs about 2 cents to make 1 penny. And if you think about that, that don't make no sense. It takes about 2 cents to make a penny. Environmentalists will also say, since pennies are not mostly copper, but in fact are mostly zinc, 98% zinc, that stopping the production of pennies would help the environment because zinc requires mining that, in fact, environmentalists will say damages the environment unnecessarily. So this is a hot issue, actually, and there's coalitions on both sides. There's a group called Americans for Common Sense. And they say the penny is necessary because if you get rid of it, other businesses are not going to do what these smaller California businesses that were profiled in the story I'm looking at from Salon.com. They will not round down. They will round up. So penny by penny by penny, the cost of everything will go up if you get rid of pennies. And the Americans for Common Sense say, while that might not seem like a big deal to you, to people living where they literally budget for every penny, and that's a whole bunch of Americans, that it would really be onerous. Somebody living on a truly stringent budget would feel the impact of the disappearance of pennies. They also say that charities might suffer because some charities do penny drives. They do? Why would you do a penny drive? Even back in the 30s, the March of Dimes, they went for dimes in the 30s. Why would they go for pennies now? At any rate, I'm for getting rid of them, pretty much. They're a pain in the neck and they load down my purse. And nobody wants them. Ansel has something on deaths in the news. Oh, Ansel is of the opinion that there's always a third one. All right, we have women dying this week. Margaret Thatcher and Annette Funicello. What a pair that is. Okay, Margaret Thatcher, and he's saying, who will be the third?
Roger Ebert just died.
Yeah, Roger Ebert just died.
That's 3.
That's 3. Jess says we got 3. That's 3. And the fact of the matter is, an awful lot of other people died too. You might not know them, but they died. And they were pretty special people to their families and who knows to us. We just don't know them. Annette Funicello, Margaret Thatcher, or I don't know, and Roger Ebert. And as I warned you yesterday, I mean, the papers are just page after page extolling Maggie Thatcher today. Even the Post-Gazette wrote something just laudatory about her, and so did the New York Times. And so I'm fed up, and I'm really glad that I read the thing I read yesterday about how she just decimated the have-nots in Great Britain, but how the swells did just fine under Maggie. But I did suggest she was a complicated person and hardly a likable one. If you have paid your taxes already, this might resonate. I don't know. This made me... this seems so old-fashioned. And the guy writing it is talking about a long time ago. He's talking about the 1940s when he was a child. And he's remembering his father paying his taxes. And I just want to read you the little letter he wrote to the editor because it opens up our heads to remind ourselves that we've been brainwashed to think of taxes as confiscatory, as something that's being taken from us, right? And for some reason, we never think, or at least if Republicans have their way, we would never think of what we get in return for that money. Republicans seem to think that government can run on fumes. They don't see that as citizens of a nation that we all chip in, right? That's what taxes are. We all chip in. I guess that's too communal for the conservative mind. But this gentleman, Norman Tepley of West Bloomfield, Michigan, remembers his dad. My father, he says, who came to this country in 1906, was a successful dentist when my brother and I were children in the early 1940s. 2 weeks before taxes were due, he worked happily late into every night calculating his taxes. When he finished, he called Mom, my brother, and me into the room to see the check he had just written. This is what we pay to live in this great country, he explained proudly, every single year. We then would pile into Dad's 1937 Buick and drive the 1040 and the check to the post office. My brother and I would play word games with Dad on the way for the privilege of being the one who got to drop the envelope into the mail slot. On the way home, we always stopped for ice cream. That's a memory of a different point of view of an immigrant to this country who made good and who was more than happy to write every year a check to pay for what we pay. This is what we pay to live in this great country. I just think it's worth reminding ourselves of that kind of sense of citizenship. I know we can all say, yeah, but look what they do with the money, and oh my God, it's not this and that. This sense of I'm part of this something bigger, and I don't know. Leave it to the Republicans. They'll have us hating absolutely everything, hating every aspect of anything that makes us a nation, except our military and our guns. That they love. Very bizarre, if you ask me. All righty, who asked me anyway? That's it for me. Tomorrow, Mr. Potter makes an appearance, and hope you'll be here as well. Toodaloo.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.